Michigan coming off a pretty rough loss against the USC Trojans. So the question is, what went wrong in Southern California? I will go over the good, the bad, and the ugly. There's not a lot of good, and there is a lot of ugly, unfortunately. So let's dive deep into the film. On defense, I am going to start with the good. There's not a whole lot of it, but there's a little bit that Michigan can build off of. When Michigan got aligned and did not pressure, did not send a blitz, and just played sound football in the run game, they did well. When Michigan started to blitz or run simulated pressures where they blitz one guy and drop another, that's where they started to see a lot of problems defending the run. Lincoln Riley put on a personnel and screen clinic. He put 12 personnel on the field, aligned in 10 personnel out of it, sometimes even aligned in empty out of it. He caught Michigan stuck in base personnel, and he just screened the crap out of them. In 8 screens, USC had 91 yards for over 11 yards per play, many of which he caught Michigan in a simulated pressure, a pressure, and or caught Michigan in base personnel trying to defend an empty formation screen. Michigan did have some self-inflicted wounds as well. They got the play call in pretty late, and that affected a couple plays. And then in key moments, the angles became a problem. You can tell that they are not as effective as they were a couple years ago with their angles. The offense had some problems of their own. It wasn't quite as bad as the fan base has expressed from the quick reaction of the game, but there is a lot to clean up in all areas of the offense. But we'll start with a couple good defensive clips. You can see Michigan's aligned. There is no blitz. Everyone who needs to hammer the ball in and spill the ball out does the responsibility. The front seven is really good at block destruction when the roles and responsibilities are very clear and simple. But once there's a pressure or simulated pressure with someone blitzing, which usually requires the defensive line to slant, there are problems. So on this specific play, Ernest is blitzing the left B gap. When you blitz, the rest of the defensive line has to slant to accommodate for the blitzer. Essentially like rush lanes, but against a run. The problem is the defensive line doesn't slant, and even without that, there's nobody else within the second level once Ernest clears. So now you have a puller, you have gap scheme, and you have nobody at the second level to account for him. So you end up with 2 guys in 1 gap. And you can really see it from the sideline view. When you pause it right here, you have the tight end sealing the will linebacker. You have the receiver cracking the safety and the pulling guard for the corner. This isn't a good picture. USC has a serious numbers advantage. Another key play in the game. Check out the linebacker blitzing. Anytime you blitz and there's a puller, it's a pretty big risk. You can see it from this angle. This is not good. There are 2 guys in this gap, and then there are 2 guys in this gap, and nobody in this gap. Not good. Again, when Michigan plays a simple base call, cover 4, cover 3, with no simulated pressure or no pressure, they've had success, serious success. Once there's all this movement on the line and linebackers blitzing or scraping, it's just so high risk, high reward, especially against the run. And so now we're going to get into this chess game between Lincoln Riley and Wink. Lincoln Riley had a heck of a game plan, constantly got in 12 personnel. You can see here 2 tight ends, and Michigan's in base personnel to match 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 defensive linemen against 12 personnel. But then USC, out of 12 personnel, goes to a 10 personnel formation, and then even motions the running back. So it's like an empty formation out of 12 personnel when Michigan's in base with 5 defensive linemen. Michigan runs a 5-man pressure with all 5 linemen, if you want to call the Sam linebacker on the line of scrimmage a lineman, and then they just screen the crap out of Michigan. And here's another USC screen against Michigan's base personnel. So if we freeze it here and look at these 4 defenders, this is in base personnel. In nickel personnel, that Sam should be a nickel, and he would be aligned across number 2, the number 2 receiver, counting from the outside in. And again, football's a numbers game. It's not rocket science. It's a numbers game. If you have 3 receivers, you want to have 4 defenders, 4 over 3. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4 over 3. But instead, Michigan only has 3 over 3. If you really want to look at it and say 2 over 3, I mean, this is just a recipe for disaster. So this is an easy now screen with the only defender who can make the play 15 yards away from the receiver pre-snap. And it's like, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I'd be okay with this even happening twice, but it happened constantly throughout the game. USC was in 12 personnel, got Michigan to stay in base personnel, and then USC just went spread out. Michigan had 5 defensive linemen on the field, and it wasn't just screens. Just the fact that USC got Michigan stuck in base personnel against now an empty look here. The Sam, Mike, and Will in this picture in base should be aligned like that, even if they're still in base. Again, numbers game. Usually you'd want to be a nickel personnel against this, and you'd want to have 1, 2, 3 over 1, 2 up top, 3 over 2 up top, and then you'd want to have 4 over 3 at the bottom. The problem is Michigan ends up essentially in 5 over 3 at the bottom and 2 over 2 up top. So, of course, football being a numbers game, Maeva takes the numbers, and it's free access. It's just free yards. Similar problem here, still getting Michigan stuck in base personnel, USC in 12, but showing an empty look. And in this one, Michigan's running a country cover 3. And it comes down to the Mike understanding where number 3 is. No, this is not man-to-man, but especially in quick game, you have to match the offensive skill players. So the corner's on 1, the nickel's on 2, the dropping boundary end's on 2, and the corner's on 1. The Mike needs to understand that his drop needs to be in relation to number 3. So when you freeze it here, at the snap, the boundary end is dropping towards his number 2. The Mike needs to drop to our right, his left, towards number 3. He doesn't open space. Then here's Michigan subbing late, getting the call in late. You can see a lineman running onto the field as they snap the ball, so they're not even ready. It happens here again. You can see Jay-Sean is still to the field, running to the boundary, a late sub, a late call. It's just not good. You see it from this view. There's no way that on a normal down and distance, they're in an overload front to the field with 3 defensive linemen to one side of the center. And then obviously the boundary end's not even ready yet. So they got to get the call in way earlier. That's inexcusable. And then here's the 3rd and 25. Big, explosive for a first down. Now look, I'll give it to the defensive line and even the linebackers that you're not expecting run. Now, Jimmy, number 30 here, does need to see that it's run a little earlier, and he's got to address this blocker and spill the ball, and he should be able to make the play. But even without that, angles. Brandon Hillman, number 6 here, has to own the left hip, and Rod Moore has to own the right hip. They are in a vice tackle. Hillman, number 6, cannot let the ball cross his face to the left, and Rod, number 19, cannot allow the ball to cross his face to the right. And because Brandon's closer, he needs to, what they call, run the J. He needs to stay positive as long as he can and then get lateral at the last second to make the tackle. But instead, he takes a very lateral angle. He allows the ball to cross his face, cut back inside. Big gain. They got to address the angles. So coming out of this game, I do think the defense has a lot more to fix than the offense does, but let's address the offense right now. 3rd and long in fringe field goal range. Bryce needs to understand the situation here. Yes, it's a delayed blitz. Yes, he's trying to get out of it. He's got to throw the ball away and understand that's 3 points right there. Now, this interception he throws, I don't know. Out of all the ticky-tack stuff that the officials called against Michigan, this should have been a pass interference. Is it a risky throw? Yeah, but it actually is the same exact read he made on this touchdown. So I don't mind that risk. This is a great cover 2 hole shot here to Marsh. You can see there's a lot of good signs on offense. Bryce delivers the ball very well. Marsh is really stepping up. McCulley keeps showing up. Bryce is still effective on his feet. I would have maybe liked to see a few more quarterback runs. The run game wasn't a problem. And schematically, Michigan's boot game continues to be elite. You'd like to see more drop-back pass, though. It's the one thing. You don't see much of a drop-back passing game. You don't even see the opportunity too much. They got to open it up more on first and second down and take some pressure off the offensive line by not only calling drop-back on 3rd and long. So what's fixable and what might not be? Getting the call in late. That's a pretty self-inflicted wound that is fixable. Identifying that the offense is trying to keep you in base personnel to go empty on you, that's pretty fixable. You can stay in nickel personnel. A little frustrating that they didn't after the first few empty 12 personnel screens that USC gashed Michigan on. And then the schematic decision of pressuring. There is a lot to clean up within those pressures, yes. But I do think that moving forward, Michigan doesn't need to pressure or run simulated pressures as much as they are. They're playing pretty well when it's a base cover 3, cover 4 call out of nickel personnel. When they start requiring D-line movements because of pressures, that's when they've seen offenses gash them a little bit. And most importantly, I think they need to get the call in earlier to allow the guys to think about their responsibility and align correctly, because when Michigan's aligned correctly, they've done well. This game had a lot of missed assignments, but even worse, had more missed alignments. And so they have a lot to clean up pre-snap. It's all fixable. The only thing that I think is maybe, I don't want to say not fixable, but it might take a little more time because it's so habit-driven, is the angles. So going into Washington on defense, they have to clean up the pre-snap stuff, and you got to see improvement in the angles. And then offensively, like to see a little more drop-back pass incorporated. Hopefully Justice Haynes is healthy, and got to see some improvement on the offensive line.